Hi, welcome to the Old Geezer's Diary. I'm Chris. It is Thursday, the 16th, good Lord, of May 2024. It's nearly summer, and in 5 weeks, it's the summer solstice. What I want to talk about today, well, first things first, a huge thank you to all the people who have commented and liked my previous videos. And we're talking about videos that have been talking about the pension and I've been talking about related matters. I want to talk about something different today. I want to talk about the NHS. I had the privilege of sitting in my local hospital for 2 hours today, but I got a good result out of it from my point of view. There you go. But I want to talk about the NHS in general and about maybe what Labour is saying about it and certainly what I'm saying about it and maybe what the Tories are saying about it. But the first thing I want to deal with is the past two videos I made, mainly dealing with the pension. And one of the things that I want to say really up front is thank you so much for the sheer amount of comments and for the sheer amount of likes and subscriptions and all that kind of stuff that you gave me out of that, because that's enormously encouraging. What I want to do with this little channel is kind of talk about things that we don't generally talk about and that we don't generally have a platform to talk about. What I want to do is try and find a platform where we can talk about it. It's so bloody rare in this world, isn't it? Okay, that's point one, is I want to continue that kind of line of actually talking about stuff, because there's so much stuff in our world we do not talk about. So, NHS. This morning I spent a couple of hours in my local hospital in the eye clinic, and I have to tell you the people were really nice. They were charming, they were friendly, they gave me some good advice, they made sure that I understood what they were telling me, and I was well impressed with the nurses that I saw and the doctor that I saw. That's really good, isn't it? But the worst thing about it all is that when you talk to them a little more personally, you discover that they feel under enormous pressure. And they feel under enormous pressure because their whole world there really is pressurised. A nurse said to me, well, the thing about it, we always have big queues in our waiting room because they overbook us. They book probably 1.5 times more people than we can see, in the hope that some of them won't turn up, but most of them do. And so we're pushing along. Then we're pushing along, and the next step in the process is pushing along. And when you get to see the doctor eventually, they're pushing along. Hey. And she said, well, the problem is, of course, that we get despondent and we get tired and we get fed up. And she said, so many people in this hospital are looking for new jobs. They're looking for a way out of the NHS because they don't like all the pressure and they don't like all the pain. What they also don't like is the fact that they've got layers and layers of management standing over their heads, watching everything they do and telling them how to do their jobs that they've maybe been doing for 20 years and the managers have never done. And that I find really incredibly difficult. I think we need any government to start looking properly at the world that we live in, especially things like the NHS, especially things like social services, because the people who manage them, namely the government at the end, don't have any bloody idea. If you are Rishi Sunak, you're worth 750 million quid, and if you need a doctor, you ring a number and a doctor comes out to see you and says, no, Mr. Sunak, you've got a pimple on your bum, you'll be all right, but I'll give you some cream. Well, if you and I ring the doctor or send them one of these e-consult things, they will deal with you. They'll get in touch with you, but there can be a ring and it has to be bloody serious before they'll see you, because their time is targeted by NHS managers. And the reality is that isn't really good enough to look after people properly. What we need to do is start looking after people properly and to try and make sure that people get the right level of service from the NHS. And the only way we do that is by putting more money in. I was watching a Tory MP being interviewed the other day, and the interviewer was very good and straightforward, and he was asking about a programme that would cost a few £1 billion that the MP was talking about. And he said, where are you going to get the money from? And the MP said, well, it's not a big problem. We'll cut a little bit out of the civil service and we can cut a bit out of the NHS. Oh, what a good idea. That's an easy target. I would like to see the NHS properly funded and doing what it's supposed to do. I do think we've got a big problem with stuff where we, the population, overreact to having pimples on our bum. But in fact, we still need to deal with it all. And if it costs money, it costs money. I don't think we should keep worrying so much about the amount of tax we're getting if we're getting the service we want. I am, however, worried that the population of the UK would look at Jeremy Hunt and say, oh, he'll give us tuppence in the pound off tax. He'll cut it out of the NHS. And the next time we go bloody NHS, I rang up an ambulance and they said it'll be there tomorrow. It's your own fault. If you cut tuppence in the pound out of income tax or tuppence in the pound out of this, that or the other, you end up cutting the services to pay for that thing. And that's not what we want. What we need to do is get the NHS back on its feet, to get all the other services back on their feet, to actually take control of the water boards that have just poisoned some people down there in Devon. I don't know whether they've done their jobs properly or whatever they've done, but the water boards and all the other public concerns that we used to have that are now privatised need a serious looking at. So let's go back to the NHS. Fund the NHS properly, pay its people properly, make sure its hospitals are in good working order, and you will find the population is feeling better. That's what we need. Tell me your experiences of the NHS. I would love to know how you've been getting on. I'd like to see on our video page all your comments about your problems and your satisfactions with the NHS. I'd like to see on the page all your comments about the problems and the wins with the NHS, because it's really important. And get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. I'm Chris. This is the Old Geezer's Diary. I'll see you soon.